An active shooter in Atlanta has been identified, but still at large. So we'll be talking just a bit about what's happening there, giving some updates, and if you do happen to see this active shooter, please do not engage, but do, if you see something, say something. So we'll go over that, what's happening there, and what's going on with that. The Fed has issued another quarter-point rate hike, letting us know that they are planning on stopping this after this particular meeting. But, I mean, they've been saying this for meetings upon meetings before this, and every time they say that they're going to do it, another big hit of inflation comes in and they have to come back and do it again. But we'll talk a bit about that, what's happening there, and what we do with that. A drone strike attempt on Vladimir Putin's life leads both sides to come out and do their best Shaggy impression, with them both saying, "It wasn't me." So we'll talk a bit about what's happening with that, what this means for the American people, and where we go from there. And lawmakers from both sides of the aisle, including Gates and AOC, come together to introduce a bill to ban stock trading, which is something that I have been begging for a long time. We'll talk a bit about the Uneasy Alliance, what this means, and what they are saying about each other. It is going to be all of this and more over here on Contemporary. I was the one flying the balloons. I am J. Edgar, and this is Contemporary. So it appears that my modem may be outdated, and that may be what's actually causing most of this here. I got on the phone with Spectrum as soon as the stream was over last night, and we did come to find out that, I have a 300 megabit per second internet service here. My modem can only handle 150 megabits per second, and it is, I can't remember the word because I'm not an IT guy, unfortunately. But it's version 3.1 is the current version that they have out there for it, and I have a version 3.0. And that actually is what's causing my issues with the internet. And I confirmed that with my friend Seawall, who actually does do IT, so he actually knows what's going on with this. So that'll be coming up here in the near future. That'll be another $150 out the door. But hey, we'll actually get some of this fixed here in the near future. They're trying to get me to get their equipment, but I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not comfortable with that. I've never been comfortable using the internet provider's equipment, rather using some of my own, because hey, then they can't censor, put in, or advertise through their stuff here. But you know, that actually might even get me through for a little while as we go, while I go back to find something else here. But regardless, we'll be getting a new modem, and for those of you who've been watching since we went live, one of the problems that we had here again was like right at the beginning, as soon as we were putting data out from the stream, we went down and it started dropping frames left and right because, well, apparently that is what the issue is when you don't have the right version of internet router. But we're not here to talk about internet routers today. We're here to talk about the news, and there is plenty of that to talk about here. The Uneasy Alliance on the stocks trading, which may be what actually tanks out Washington, D.C. Now, this is not going to go anywhere, obviously, but we'll be talking a bit about that. Another bank failure is imminent, by the way, and the big news of the day, of course, is that Russia and Ukraine are both coming out here saying, it wasn't me. Oh, they caught you on camera. It wasn't me. Saw you banging on the sofa. It wasn't me. So we'll be talking about that, what's happening with that, and where we go from that. So lots to go over here today. Plus, we'll see if we can't catch up with some of the things that we have left over from Monday. I've got some Bernie news. I took a few things out of here. I put some things on for things I like and things that I hate. And there's definitely some stuff going on there. By the way, one thing that is not on the list for today, even though the Twitter sphere was trying to push this and astroturf this out here, is I am not covering the sentence for Richard Barnett, who was allegedly sentenced to 46 years for putting his feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk. And the reason that I'm not covering that is the only word that I have on this, the only news that I did have, was from one Jack Cosciarella, who came out and alleges that Mr. Barnett got 46 years for putting his feet on Pelosi's desk, whereas when I went to the main Green Check verified accounts, the last thing that I saw was about 3 weeks ago the judge had delayed the sentencing in that case. So I'm sorry, Mr. Cosciarella, but I don't buy your bullshit. So we're not going to put it up on the stack for the day, but we have plenty of else to go over here today on Contemporary. Before we get started, make sure you go check out great programming such as The Breakdown with Birkenhoff, The R-Rated Conservative, The Porch Boys. Go check out Tweets by Brit, Mr. Behavior, The No Gimmicks Podcast, and more as we aim to bring you a better news and culture experience from the common man for the common man. That is right. Don't get your news from people who wear suits that cost more than your houses. Get your news from people and your culture from people who are just like you, who've had to make some of the same decisions that you have. And also, by the way, while you're out there, go check out Silentcaster, Harvey McLeod. Who else am I forgetting out there? Oh, by the way, Tweets by Brit may be making a new podcast coming up here in the near future. And go check out the Clown World Chronicles with Papa Palpatine too. We've got a lot of good content out there. I'm in the talks with some of these people to try to get them on the network. I need to reach out to some more of them because everybody that I've mentioned so far, I want to have on one single network where we can pull each other for interviews, where we can come in and do that on a moment's notice. We can make some new friends, get some new people out here, and give you, the viewer, a better news experience. All right, let's get in to the main news of the day. By the way, do go ahead and put up your live chat if that's something that you guys want to see out here. Mogwai has been busy here today, talking with what's going on the internet, and it has seemed to stabilize, it looks like. I am watching the main stream over on the Rumble side, so I can see if I blur out over here, whereas I won't be able to see that on my other screen. Mogwai says it wasn't Ukraine. No way! No way! But we will see what's happening with that, and let's get going. Aw, the Mogwai's leaving. Oh, come on in. Stick around. We'll see if we can educate you up here today. All right, let's get started on the Dow for the day. The Dow is at 33,414.24. It actually spent a lot of the day up today, oddly enough, when we look at what was happening with the Dow on that. Just barely cresting. It wasn't a huge amount of gain on the Dow today, but it was staying above water for most of the day. And once the quarter-point rate hike came in, and we also got some news about PacWest, then it started to drop off again at the very end of the day, ending down 270.29 points. That's just shy of 1% at 0.8. So that's what we see coming from that. Looking in at your Bitcoin is sitting at 29,184.90. That's up $504 and 40 US cents, or 1.76% on the day. Your gas prices on the Madison area remain steady: $3.20 on the Isthmus, $3.30 on the east side, $3.40 on the west side. So that is what we have going on with that. Not a lot of motion here, but we'll continue to watch this particular region and see what happens with this. Your gas prices may be different. Check your local listings. This is a standard comparison that we have continued to look at as we go through every single day on the gas report and see and chart how it's been going, especially through the Biden presidency, but also through the Pinko Pox. Let's grab, I didn't grab the layoffs report today. We'll go without the layoffs report because we've got a ton of other stuff to go over here today. But what we will look at is the Dow. The Dow closes more than 250 points lower Wednesday after the Fed hikes rates for a 10th time from Ha-Kyung Kim and Sarah Min. Stocks fell Wednesday after the Federal Reserve raised rates by the 25 basis points as widely expected. The Dow closed lower by 270.29 points. The S&P dropped 0.7 to close at 4090.75, and the Nasdaq slid 0.46 to close at 12,025.33 points. The indices notched 3-day losing streaks. Earlier bullish sentiment was dented somewhat after Fed Chair Jerome Powell ruled out cutting interest rates because he did not expect inflation to come down quickly enough. In determining the extent to which the additional policy firming may be appropriate to return inflation to 2% over time, the committee will take into account the cumulative tightening of monetary policy, the lags with which monetary policy affects economic activity and inflation, and economic and financial developments, the Fed said in a statement. However, the traders noticed what the Fed didn't say this time in its post-meeting statement. The central bank appeared to soften its language about future rate increases by dropping a line from the March statement that said the committee anticipates that some additional policy firming may be appropriate. Well, they'll try, and they will fail again, and we will continue to be at this point. Powell commented to the press after the statement's release that dropping that language was a meaningful change and that the central bank's June decision would be driven by incoming data. Ed Moya, senior market analyst at Owanda, said Wednesday's rate increase, which marks the central bank's 10th consecutive hike, will likely be the last one this cycle. Well, they said that in September of last year as well. I've yet to see an end to this cycle. And every time they attempt to get to the end, our inflation spikes again. So I will believe it when I see it. But I'm not ready to come back out and say, yes, they're going to drop it. I'm willing to hear them out if they say that they're going to, but I need to see some evidence before I believe that they're going to do it. The Fed is concerned that tighter credit conditions will weigh on economic activity and hiring while helping maintain disinflation trend, Moya said. Credit tightening is about to cripple the economy, and it appears that as long as we don't get the perfect storm of hotter than expected labor and inflation data, the Fed will keep rates on hold for at least the very least until the end of the year. Well, we'll see. I don't buy it. We're still going to get another big inflation or jobs report, and Biden's going to say, "Hey, look at all these jobs I created, man!" And people are going to keep spending and spending and spending. And I don't think this is going away. We'll see what happens, though. All right, we have got to get to some breaking current news right now from NBC, which I had this continue without supporting before, but this may be just based on the fact that we completely lost internet for a second while we were live. Suspect at large in shooting that Atlanta medical facility that left one dead and multiple injured. From David K. Lee, Daniel Arkin, and Philip Helsel. Gunfire erupted at an Atlanta medical facility on Wednesday, killing at least one woman and wounding 4 more as police searched for the assailant, authorities said. Police were searching for 24-year-old Dion Patterson, who is believed to be the gunman, whose picture was taken by security cameras, officials said. Patterson fled in a vehicle he carjacked and later abandoned, Atlanta Police Chief Durin Shearbaum told reporters. The suspect and that stolen vehicle were seen by Department of Transportation cameras in Cobb County. Wait, they have those? Shit. KTZed. I've been driving around in that county several times over the past 2 years. And I'm just now finding out they have traffic cameras? KTZed, come on. It's been a lot of time since 12:30. That's the last visual confirmation we have from video Delks at around 6 p.m. Wednesday. There have been no confirmed eyewitness sightings and no other vehicles reported stolen. The shooting happened around 12:08 p.m. on the 11th floor waiting room in a Northside Hospital medical facility in Midtown, Shearbaum said. The suspect, later identified as Patterson, was able to flee the area as law enforcement descended on the shooting scene in Midtown, he said. That's your bolo right there, which means that, by the way, once they catch this guy, this story is out of the news. The victims, all of whom were women, have not been publicly identified. The victim who was killed was 39. The 4 people who were wounded were ages 71, 56, 39, and 25, Shearbaum said. It wasn't immediately clear if the victims were patient or hospital employees. And again, I don't know even who the victim was, but I'm guessing, based on the way that hospitals are typically laid out, based on what happened and where this goes, my guess is if I had to actually put a guess out on this, it was baby mama drama. It was probably a handgun, because we've got everything pictured here. We don't see a rifle. Looks like if we pull into this picture here, we actually see a handgun in his hand. I can't tell completely. He's masked up. Safety first, apparently. But if he had an AR-style rifle, which is the other reason, by the way, that this will fall out of the news fairly quickly, is because this doesn't use the scary black rifle. But we would be able to tell if he had a rifle by this point, so it's probably some baby mama drama, and baby mama was probably a nurse of some sort. Or it was a friend of baby mama who's trying to tell baby mama to leave. So he went in, he found the nurse's station, and he took out everybody else who was standing there. And yeah, some of these nurses are working into their 70s too, so do keep that in mind. Police posted pictures of the suspect, who was still at large. They later identified him as Patterson. Anyone who sees Patterson is asked to call 911 and do not engage. Patterson was at the medical facility with his mother for an appointment, police said. A woman who answered a number of associated with the suspect's mother declined to answer the question and handed the phone to an Atlanta police officer. The shooter's mother was not harmed in the gunfire, and his family has been cooperative with investigators, the chief said. Patterson was formerly in the U.S. Coast Guard, the Maritime Military Branch said. He entered the Coast Guard in July 2018 and last served as an electrician's mate, second class. It said in a statement he was discharged from active duty in January with no identifiers as to honorable or dishonorable. So, suspect is still at large right now. We will skip over the Fox 5, the local story. But yes, if you do see Patterson, if you're in the Atlanta area, call 911. Do not engage. He's got the taste of blood in his mouth. And probably feels just a bit desperate on top of it. Yeah, Atlanta's flush with traffic cams. Oh, now you tell me. No, I still love going down and seeing KTZed and Mr. Zed. I could get tires so I can do that this July. My tires were going bad last year when I went down there. Like, I looked at my tires, and they were still somewhat decent at the time, but I looked at them on that last trip right before I left to come back here and said, yeah, this is probably the last long trip I'm making on these tires. And then I moved across the state on those tires, so it's time. My new tires are sitting in the lobby at work. It's just a matter of coming up with $1,000 to go get them put on. Alright. In other crime and punishment news from NPC, Texas manhunt ends after suspect accused of killing 5 neighbors found hiding in laundry pile. Got him! From John Shupe, Marlene Lenthang, and Phil Helsel. The man accused of killing 5 of his neighbors with an AR-style rifle in their Texas home was arrested Tuesday after a tip led authorities to the house less than 20 miles from where the crimes took place, officials said. Dude, they've been looking for this guy for like 5 days, and he only went 20 miles? The arrest of Francisco Oropesa, 38, in the city of Cut and Shoot, Texas, ironic name, marked the end of a massive manhunt that was its 4th day Tuesday. Okay, 4 days, not 5 days. A tip called into an FBI line at 5:15 p.m. led to Oropesa's arrest at 6:30 p.m. Jimmy Paul, the assistant special agent in charge of the FBI's Houston field office, said at a news conference. We just want to thank the person who had the courage and bravery to call in the suspect's location, Paul said. So, they got him. And somebody got $80,000 for that too, by the way. Although I'm sure the government will find a way to keep from paying that. They're quite good at that. But they got him. They got him alive. They can make him answer questions. The thing that I'm worried about is they're probably going to deport him Mexico is not going to do anything about it, and he'll be back. But we'll see what happens with that. The Mogwai makes a movie reference that a movie I've never seen, but I know what he's referencing. He says Texas is a big state and it wasn't Tommy Lee Jones leading the manhunt. That, of course, is a reference to The Fugitive, which I've never seen. And then the last one, before we get into the Fed rate hike, Nashville police refused to release a school shooter's manifesto, citing pending lawsuit. This is over at the Daily Wire from Luke Rosiak. Nashville police have backtracked on plans to release the so-called manifesto of the trans school shooter, who last month killed 6 people, including 3 children, citing a pending lawsuit. The decision, announced Wednesday, comes amid substantial public pressure to release the documents believed to lay out the motive of the 28-year-old shooter who was killed by police inside of the Covenant School to end the March 27th attack. Metro Nashville Police Department officials notified the public in a terse statement. Due to pending litigation filed this week, the Metro Nashville Police Department has been advised by counsel to hold in abeyance the release of records related to the shooting at Covenant School pending orders or direction of the court, read the statement. Does it tell us who filed the statement? The Tennessee Firearms Association, the litigation cited by the department, appeared to refer to a lawsuit filed by the Tennessee Firearms Association asserting that police had wrongfully denied public records request. Whoa. Hold on. Back up. They are refusing to release the manifesto because they are getting sued for not releasing the manifesto. Are you stupid? Their lawyers are telling them not to release the manifesto because they're being sued for not releasing the manifesto. Let that sink in. I kind of wish I just had a porcelain prop sink like Elon Musk that I could come in and say, let that sink in. There's no way. There is no way. Oh my god. Oh my god. I can't believe this. Well, I guess I can, but... Wow. TFA's lawsuit questioned how there can be an open criminal case when the perpetrator is dead. This is our legal system, folks. Far from what our founders envisioned, I can tell you that. All right. Let's talk a little bit more finance. Fed delivers small rate hike, opens door to pause and tightening cycle. This is from Reuters. Howard Schneider and Ann Safir reporting. The Federal Reserve on Wednesday raised interest rates by 0.25 percentage point and signaled that it may pause further increases, giving officials time to assess the fallout from a recent bank failure, wait on the resolution of all politics standoff over the U.S. debt ceiling, and monitor the course of inflation. The move marked a new stage of the U.S. central bank's management of the recovery from the pinko-pox pandemic, with what it may be its final rate hike of the current tightening cycle. And heightened attention to risks facing the economy, the Fed has now raised rates 10 consecutive times since March of 2022, which I'm telling you right off the bat, they should have started long before that. This is something we should have been talking about in March of 2021. Pushing the benchmark overnight interest rate to 5 to 5.25. In an overt shift, the central bank no longer said it anticipates further rates will be needed, only that it will watch incoming data to determine if more hikes may be appropriate. Yeah, and again, you guys keep doing this. The Mogwai says, I thought I lost signal again, but J. Edgar was just left speechless. Yeah? Yeah, there's a lot of stupid here. There definitely is. In a change reminiscent of language used when it halted rate hikes in '06, the Fed said in Wednesday's unanimous policy statement that in determining the extent to which additional policy firming may be appropriate, officials will study how the economy, inflation, and financial markets behave in the coming weeks and months. The new language does not guarantee the Fed will hold rates steady at the next policy meeting in June. The statement noted that inflation remains elevated and the job gains are still running at a robust pace. So, that was enough to take the markets down today, so we will continue to watch this and see what happens there, but I know we have to look at the housing market and what's happening there, and CNBC to tell you how this will affect you. Here is how the Federal Reserve's latest quarter-point interest rate hike impacts your money. From Jessica Dickler. The Federal Reserve raised the target federal funds rate by another quarter point on Wednesday. Even though the Fed's rate hike cycle has started to cool inflation, no, it has not, by the way, consumers are now paying record high rates to borrow. Credit card rates are above 20%, rates on home equity lines of credit have doubled, and any recent mortgage debt or auto loans have come at a high price too, said Greg McBride, chief financial analyst at Bankrate.com. The federal funds rate, which is set by the U.S. central banks, is an interest rate at which banks borrow and lend to one another overnight. Although that's not the rate consumers pay, the Fed's moves will affect the borrowing and saving rates that they see every day. This rate hike will correspond with a rise in the prime rate and immediately send financing costs higher for many forms of consumer borrowing. On the flip side, higher interest rates also mean savers will earn more money on their bank deposits. On credit cards, since most credit cards have a variable rate, there's a direct connection to the Fed's benchmark. As the federal funds rate rises, the prime rate does as well, and your credit card rate follows suit within 1 or 2 billing cycles. Credit card APR are now over 20% on average, an all-time high, with most people feeling strained by higher prices. More cardholders carry debt from month to month. Now people are racking up debt and borrowing high rates, and that's troublesome, said Thomas Phillipson, University of Chicago economist and former chair of the White House Council of Economic Advisors. With this rate increase, consumers with credit card debt will spend an additional $1.7 billion on interest. According to an analysis by WalletHub, factoring in the hikes between March 2022 and March 2023, credit card users will wind up paying at least $31.7 billion in extra interest charges over the next 12 months. WalletHub found. Although 15 and 30-year mortgage rates are fixed, tied to Treasury yields, the economy, anyone shopping for a new home, has lost considerable purchasing power, partially because the inflation and the Fed's policy moves. Rates are now off their recent peak, but not by much. The average rate for a 30-year sits at 6.48%, according to Bankrate, down slightly from November's peak, but still much higher than it was a year ago. This goes to show how hard it is for many buyers to overcome today's persistently high home prices and mortgage rates, said Jacob Channel, senior economist at LendingTree. And auto loans, even though auto loans are fixed, payments are getting bigger because the prices for all cars are rising, along with the interest rates on new loans. So if you are planning to buy a car, you'll shell out more in the months ahead. The average rate on a 5-year new car loan is now 6.58%, according to Bankrate. And as I mentioned last week, when I was talking about the fact that I almost bought a truck last week, those prices are coming down because the dealers, because of this, are sitting on inventory and they're not moving their inventory at all. And they don't make money when they just sit on inventory. So, that is how this affects you. Let's talk Russia. Kiev denies involvement in alleged Kremlin drone attack, from Sebastian Shukla, Nathan Hodge, Matthew Chance, and Katharina Krebs over at CNN. It wasn't me. Looks like we've actually got a video from a CNN military analyst, which we'll see how propagandized that is in a minute. Let's read a bit of this first. Russia claimed that Ukraine launched an attempt to kill Russian President Vladimir Putin with a drone strike on the Kremlin overnight on Wednesday, an extraordinary allegation that was met with forceful denials in Kiev. The Kremlin said the attack was foiled and the alleged drones destroyed. Video that appeared on social media shows a bright flash and a puff of smoke over part of the Kremlin, the official residence of the Russian president and the most potent symbol of power in Moscow. I thought Tetris was the most potent symbol of power in Moscow. In a statement, the Kremlin said it regarded the alleged attack as terrorism, which is not. If this wasn't a false flag from them, that's actually not a bad way to put this. In a deliberate attempt on Putin's life, Russia reserves the right to take retaliatory measures where and when it sees fit, it added. Ukraine denied involvement in the alleged strike, as President Zelensky has stated numerous times before. Ukraine uses all means at its disposal to free its own territory, not to attack others, the Ukrainian president's official spokesperson, Sergei Nikiforov, told CNN on Wednesday. U.S. officials said they were still assessing the incident and had no information about who might have been responsible. Whatever the truth, any admission of a security breach at the heart of the Kremlin is remarkable. Moscow said the alleged attack took place in the early hours of Wednesday. The Russian president was not in the building at that time, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said. CNN analysis of the video showing the incident supports the Kremlin's claim that 2 drones were flown above the Kremlin early Wednesday, but did not show evidence of Ukrainian involvement. A video that appeared to show smoke rising from the Kremlin surfaced on a local neighborhood channel on social media platform Telegram at 2:37 a.m. local time Wednesday. The first reports of the incident, citing the Kremlin, came via Russian state media TASS and RIA around 2:30 p.m. local time, around 12 hours later. So that's their time. What is Russia's time exchange? Moscow. So it is 6:50 now. It's 2:50 in Russia. So 7 to 3 is an 8-hour difference? Yes. Because that's 7 to 1500. If this was the morning anyway. So it was probably happening right around the time we were on Contemporary yesterday. Shortly after the first media reports, another video appearing to show the moment a drone exploded above the Kremlin began circulating widely on social media. In the video, the apparent drone seems to fly towards the building's domed roof, followed by what looks like a small explosion. In this video, 2 people appear to be climbing on the dome holding flashlights and can be seen ducking down just before the moment of the explosion. The people climbing the dome are not present in the first of these videos but appear in the second, suggesting they were responding to the fire caused by the first drone at the time the subsequent drone appeared. The Kremlin press service has called the purported drone attack an attempt on the president's life, said it was an act of terrorism and blamed Ukraine. But Kiev said the accusation of terrorism was better directed at Russia. A terror attack destroyed blocks of residential buildings in Dnipro and Uman, or missile at line in Kramatorsk rail station, and many other tragedies, said Nikiforov, the Ukrainian presidential spokesperson. What happened in Moscow is obviously about escalating mood on eve of May 9th. That day is known as Victory Day inside Russia, commemorating Soviet Union's role in defeating Nazi Germany in World War II. It is trick to be expected from opponents. A Ukrainian presidential advisor, Mikhailo Podolyak, also denied Kiev had any involvement and said it made no sense for Ukraine to have carried out the alleged strike. Well, I wouldn't go that far either if it was me. Let's listen to the CNN video. I want to hear what their military analyst, their totally unbiased military analyst, has to say. Let's listen.
With your expert eyes, what do you see as the drone explodes right there?
Yeah, right there, Boris, what you're looking at is a direct hit. So the anti-aircraft weaponry that the Kremlin has deployed around it for protection purposes, was clearly engaged. And it seemed, to my eyes, it seems as if they knew exactly what they were shooting at and when that target would be arriving in their area.
Another thing that's interesting, there are two people apparently climbing this dome. And I also wanted to point out there's a large stage and seating here. It's in anticipation of May 9th, Victory Day, a big symbolic day for Russia, perhaps a day that Ukraine might have wanted to target.
Well, that's possible because, as you said, Boris, May 9th is a really big holiday from a military perspective in Russia. This is where they show a lot of their weaponry, have done so historically ever since the end of World War II. And you see the 9 May signage here, the Russian flag in the sands. All of this is getting ready for a major military parade. And so from a symbolic perspective, it would make sense for somebody to attack something like this. But it also would be a perfect place to mount a false flag operation.
That is a good point. And as we take another look, this is a new angle of the drone exploding. You see it here in the upper left, and this view is important because of the context, because of what you see. This is very close to Red Square. Yes. St. Basil's Cathedral is just off to the right there, not far from Annunciation Cathedral as well. You imagine that this area must be very well protected.
Absolutely, and if we look at the map right here, Red Square is right here. This is where the parade would be taking place. Right. Annunciation Cathedral, that's where the Tsars received confession. That was their personal chapel during the time of the Tsars. So that's a huge symbolic place as far as Russia is concerned, and they would obviously want to protect it. And St. Basil's, of course, is very famous as part of the Kremlin structure itself.
So to the point that Jim made about the credulity of the Russian claim that this was Ukraine, let's pull up the map. This is some 300 miles away from the Ukrainian border. You imagine that this drone didn't even take off from here. Right. Given what you know about Ukraine's capabilities and Russia's capabilities to see what's coming, does it seem like...
All right, a couple things about that. First off, we're not talking about Ukraine's capabilities. We're talking about U.S. capabilities. Ukraine is using our weapons, and some from Israel, and some from Saudi Arabia, and some from Iran also, oddly enough, and Syria. But for the most part, they're using our weapons. So it's not Ukraine's capability.
Likely that this was a Ukrainian attack?
Unlikely for that very reason, because the Russians have radar installations all along this area right here, and the place where they would most likely be launching something like this from would be about here. And given that fact, that's a little bit longer than 300 miles. It would take a lot of fuel. It would take loitering time that some of these drones have. Now, it is possible that Ukraine could have mounted this operation from inside Russia using special operations forces. That is not beyond the realm of possibility, but it is unlikely, even though they have mounted attacks allegedly against the areas in the south, against air bases, things like that. So these are areas that can be targeted, but it's very difficult to do that. And as President Zelensky said, they don't target the leadership. Russia does. Russia will use this as an excuse to probably do something like that, but it is highly unlikely that it came from Ukraine.
I don't buy that for a second. And again, the big one here is the fact that they are using our technology, not theirs. So there's that aspect to it. By the way, apparently there was a school shooting in Serbia, but I was told that this doesn't happen in any other country other than ours. Because we're also gun happy. We'll talk about that probably tomorrow. Let's grab one from Reuters. Short little read on the same topic here. Ukraine tried to assassinate Putin by drone, Kremlin says. No author given. Russia's accused Ukraine on Wednesday of a failed attempt to assassinate President Putin in a drone attack on the Kremlin citadel in Moscow and threatened to retaliate. President Zelensky said Kiev has nothing to do with the reported overnight incident. "We don't attack Putin or Moscow. We fight on our territory," Zelensky told a press conference during a visit to Finland of the war against Russian occupiers. That is editorialization. A senior aide to Zelensky called the accusation a sign that the Kremlin was planning a major new attack on the Ukraine at a time when a potential turning point in the war as Kiev prepares to mount a long-anticipated counteroffensive. Well, I'm going to tell you right off the bat that a drone attack attempting to kill the Russian president is pretty counteroffensive. Shortly after the Kremlin announcement, Ukraine reported alerts for airstrikes over the capital Kiev and other cities. Russia said that 2 unmanned aerial vehicles were aimed at the Kremlin. As a result of timely actions taken by military and special services, with use of radar warfare system, devices were put out of action. We regard actions as planned terrorist act and attempt on president's life, carried out on Evil Victory Day and Mainland Parade, at which presence of foreign guests is also planned. Fragments of drone were scattered on the Kremlin grounds, but there were no injuries or damage, it said. Putin was safe. The RIA news agency said he had not been in the Kremlin at the time and was working on Wednesday at his Novo Ogyryovo residence outside Moscow. So, terror attack or not terror attack? I want to read one tweet, and I don't typically give these retards air. Probably shouldn't have said that on YouTube, but I don't typically give these morons air to breathe. But I want to talk about this one here for a second, and the way that this is being put out here. Now, under any other circumstance, any other normal circumstance, the message that Ed Krasenstein has put out here is something that I would actually agree with. A lot of people want to jump the gun on this and say one thing or the other happened for this. And we're not in a position to do so. We should wait till all the other information comes in. I'm going to read Krasenstein's tweet. Breaking: 2 unmanned drones have apparently hit the Kremlin. Before we rush to any conclusion, let's remember there's a ton of propaganda being spread around Eastern Europe. This could be a myriad of things, such as a false flag operation, an attack by Ukraine, an attack by rebels within Russia, a deepfake, or something completely different. Just because Putin and the Kremlin make a claim, it doesn't mean that it's true. Just because you see a video, that doesn't mean you know the context. Both Ukrainians and Russians have been putting out propaganda, so it's important to wait for the facts before rushing to judgment here. I would love to know what your thoughts are here. Here's the problem and the reason that I'm bringing this up. Now, Ed is right in this statement. He is 100% correct in this statement. We should wait until more information comes in. We can determine the origin of the drone. We can determine what materials it came from, what country it came from, and how it was built, how it was done, how it was put together, and even see if we can determine its flight plan. All of those things should be readily accessible through fragments that are caught on this, and there should be an independent investigation into the origins of this drone outside of both the Ukraine and Moscow. And I'm going to come right out and say that the US should not be involved in this either. I don't know who's objective enough to do this. I don't know who's making money off of this or who isn't making money off of this. But we should be looking into the flight data, the materials, and everything else about this drone to figure out where it came from and what it did. But my problem with this is if this had been a drone coming off the lines, going into Kiev, and exploding outside of Zelensky's executive mansion, the same Krasenstein, and I've seen him do this before, would say that Putin is a bloodthirsty tyrant. We need to put our boots on the ground to go back and take care of the evil, the unique evil that is Vladimir Putin. And it's time to write another big check. And if we see something like this, it means that it's the evil Republicans who want to coddle Putin. The people who are asking us to take a step back and look at all the facts. They're Putin apologists. And I know this because Ed Krasenstein, which at the time was through his wife's account, was making the same demands and the same calls to war about the missile that flew and blew up on a farm just inside the Polish border, that it was determined had started from Kiev. It was a 20-year-old Soviet missile, but it had been determined to have started from Kiev. And they were banging on the war drum as soon as that hit inside the Poland. The next thing that we were talking about is how we were going to retaliate against Moscow for hitting an ally. So, if it wasn't for the fact that he was completely disingenuous and he doesn't want to believe that this could be Ukrainian in origin, or wants to paint Russia as crazy conspiracy theorists who would attempt to use some reason to go back and violate the code of war that, according to Krasenstein, they've already been violating. I don't know why they would try to put up a false flag over it. Because it's supposedly Ukrainian origin and it's supposedly against Putin, we have to stop and question everything. So, I'm sorry, Ed Krasenstein. You're right about this, but you're full of shit, because if this was going the other way, you would be singing and screaming a very, very different tune. And all these things, by the way, are correct. This could be a false flag. This could be something the KGB or whatever it is that their agency devolved into now. What's the new name? What's the new letters for the KGB? SVR. Foreign Intelligence Service, SVR. So this could be the SVR doing this to try to get a sympathy vote for Russia. This could actually be Ukraine. This could be Russian rebels who are sick of Putin's crap. Or yeah, they could have faked this, or something completely different. All of those things are true. But it's these Ukrainian apologists who don't want to tell you that they would be true if they were the other direction. Let's grab one from CBS. Let's get the live chat back up here. I see it moving over here in my right peripheral vision, but I haven't been looking at it, and I need to. DM Ryan is here. Putin's pals, yeah. We fight then drink vodka. Alright, back to stateside. Something I can get behind, by the way. From CBS, bipartisan group including Gates and Ocasio-Chavez unveil bill to ban lawmakers from owning stocks. You know what? I'm actually going to use her real name on this one because she's done well. I'm not going to make fun of her this time. Okay, puppy? Sorry, force a habit. A bipartisan group of House lawmakers have unveiled a bill that would prohibit members of Congress from owning and trading individual stocks, a proposal aimed at restoring public trust by preventing lawmakers from profiteering off insider information. In a sign that the measure enjoys support across ideological spectrum, the Bipartisan Restoring Faith in Government Act. Those are two things that I can't do either way, either have faith or restore faith in government, is sponsored by GOP reps Gates and Brian Fitzpatrick, and Democrat reps Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Raja Krishnamurthy. The fact that members of the Progressive Caucus, the Freedom Caucus, and the Bipartisan Problem Solvers Caucus, reflecting the entirety of the political spectrum, can find common ground on key issues like this should send a powerful message to America, Fitzpatrick said in a statement. We must move forward on issues that unite us, including our firm belief that trust in government must be restored, and that members of Congress, including their dependents, must be prohibited from trading stocks while they are serving in Congress and have access to sensitive inside information. This is basic common sense and basic integrity 101. The bill would also prohibit member spouses and any dependents from owning individual stocks or making trades, and require that all family members or covered family members who currently own individual stock divest or place them in a qualified blind trust. The bill does not prohibit members and their families from investing in widely held investment funds or treasury bonds, which would be interesting because they would literally be buying up the bonds that are fueling our national debt, and allows for contributions to the government's retirement plan. Cortez says the ability to individually trade stocks erodes the public's trust in government, okay, puppy? When members have access to classified information, we should not be trading the stock market on it. It's really that simple, okay? Sorry, force of habit. The bill would give members 90 days to divest their stock holdings and says House ethics officials must give prior approval to any blind trust. The legislation is likely to face opposition in Congress, you know, the people who are actually getting rich off of all this. Where many members have significant holdings, a 2012 law known as the Stock Act allows members to buy and sell stocks as long as they don't use inside information to conduct their trades and disclose those transactions. Yeah, and it was wrong then. This has been something that has been on the forefront of my mind for a number of years. Most notably, by the way, involving Kelly Loeffler in Georgia. For all the people who think that I'm just a Republican shill at this point. And I'm not. I'm not a Republican. I never have been. I had an argument about that earlier today, by the way, while I was on Twitter. I don't even think the blind trust should be out there because they can still make the laws and make the manipulations to make their specific trusts and their specific holdings, whatever it is, go through the roof while everybody else's goes downhill. Now, a few things that are notable about this, and these are things that I've discussed long term in Discord conversations. And that is the fact that, number one, there is a lot of stock that is held by members of government. This is not a small issue by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, realistically, we might see the stock market, just by all that divestment and sell-off in one day, if this goes through, drop below the 25,000 mark briefly. It'll probably kick back up as more people say, I can win stock now! I can get a windfall off of this. But I would not be surprised. As much stock is owned in DC, I would not be surprised to see it go below 20,000. That might be a bit of a stretch, but 25,000 I think is definitely believable. They got the Atlanta shooter. Live update. Thank you, Mogwai. Alright, I've got the local story for this. Let's grab this here. We interrupt our breaking news to bring you some breaking news. Atlanta active shooter suspected gunman arrested after killing one, injuring 4 others in Midtown. Atlanta police said at least 1 person is dead and at least 4 people have been injured in an active shooter situation in West Tree Street Wednesday afternoon. Patterson was taken into custody just before 2,000 hours on Killarney Drive in Cobb County, according to the city of Atlanta. Chief Darren Shearbaum confirmed that all 5 victims are women aged 25, 39, 39, 56, and 71. One of the 39-year-old women died from her injuries. None of them have been identified. So they got him. For those of you who are in the Atlanta area, you can now go back about your business without having to worry about running across this idiot. Now, you still have to temper what it is that you do in Atlanta, because there are plenty of other people who want to go out there and kill you and take your stuff. But this moron is off the streets at least. Back to stocks. Thank you, Mogwai. Let's get the Rumble chat back up here. They got the Atlanta shooter. Whoops. That is not what I wanted to do. I wanted to skip ahead to live, not turn the volume back on. I had to hear my voice. You are genetically predisposed to hate the sound of your own voice. Myself included, by the way. There are a lot of people out there that say I sound like Styx. I don't hear it. I don't hear it at all. Not in my internal monologue, and definitely not what comes through my headphones and speakers when I hear myself. I think 80s Kid, you were the first one to say that if you're here. 80s Kid came over from a Styx stream back when he came on for the suicide prevention live stream. I have wanted to go in there and ask if he would give me a shout out. I just haven't had the chance to do so. All right, back to the stocks. Ocasio Chavez, Gates, and Krishnamurthy were among those who supported the bill introduced last year that would ban stock ownership by lawmakers and senior staffers. Other attempts to restrict stock trading and ownership have stalled in recent years. So, as I was saying before, we had to go back over and cover the Atlanta shooter. I have been against this for a long time. I have not always been against this. But the more I learned about insider trading, and yes, a lot of this was triggered by Kelly Loeffler, who was using insider trading and got caught doing it. That was, I think, the catalyst for a lot of us to come back out and change our minds about how Congress people do stock. And the fact that there's progressive support about this, I'm fairly excited about. I think that not only should there be no stock in government, like no stock trading, but you should be if you're in Congress. Yes, I understand that a lot of Congress, not a major proportion, but a lot of Congress is comprised of entrepreneurs, business people. But if you are a business person, just like they tried to demand that Trump do, you should be forced to divest from your businesses because you're making laws that can take down your competitors while your business flourishes. For your own stuff, like stuff that you've started up, your startups and stuff you're the CEO of, I'm less inclined to see families forced to divest from business holdings, but stocks definitely. Absolutely, stocks definitely. Because we're seeing, again, the government picking winners and losers off of this. I'm in favor of this. And there are points like, I would go as far as to say that really, honestly, no stocks, bonds, no bonds. Okay, bonds. If you want to go support a war out there or something, or treasury notes or things like that, that's a different story. And you're making the US dollar worthless anyway, so why not give you an incentive to make the US dollar more solvent? And I've gone as far as to say that it should, like, as soon as you enter a race, you should be forced to divest. The argument has come up on that where people have said, no. While they're candidates, they shouldn't be forced to. No. They should be forced to divest. As soon as you announce your candidacy for an office, all your stock is sold. You can buy it back at current market value after your candidacy, but if you're going to be a public servant, then I don't want these same people to be able to influence peddle from you while you're running on the campaign trail. Plus, some of these business people and lawyers' portfolios, think of how flush with cash their campaigns would be, without having to beg for donations or be bought off by corporations. So yes, 100% in support of this. From the Hill, Gates on co-sponsoring lawmaker stock trade bill Ocasio-Cortez is wrong a lot, but not corrupt. I still have some questions about her ethics and what she's gaining out of this, but I will give her credit for jumping onto this bill. I will. Hey look, there's the 80s kid right there. Hi 80s kid. This is from Julia Shapiro. Matt Gaetz on Tuesday said he's working alongside Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on legislation barring stock trading among members of Congress because despite their disagreements, the Congresswoman is not corrupt. Look, AOC is wrong a lot. She'd probably say the same thing about me, Gaetz told Fox News. But she's not corrupt, and I will work with anyone and everyone to ensure that Congress is not so compromised. Well, good luck. We should disallow congressional stock trading for the same reason we don't allow the referee to bet on the game, he added. That's actually a fair comparison to that. I wouldn't have thought of that. The unlikely pairing joined forces with Brian Fitzpatrick and Raja Krishnamurthy to introduce legislation Tuesday to block members of Congress, their spouses, and their dependents from engaging in stock trading. The ability to individually trade stocks erodes the public's trust in government. When members have access to classified information, we should not be trading in stock market on it. It's really that simple. The only problem that I have with this is that I won't be able to use Nancy Pelosi's stock trader to get myself and my portfolio rich anymore. But to get some of the corruption out of government, well, that's what we'll have there. And part of the reason for doing this comes from the Daily Wire. Lawmakers dumped their shares in First Republic before the company collapsed. From Ben Ziesloft. Multiple lawmakers sold their shares in First Republic in the weeks before the firm collapsed and was sold to JP Morgan by financial regulators. First Republic Bank imploded on Monday, weeks after Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank similarly collapsed, as account holders with balances above the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation threshold rushed to withdraw their funds. Periodic transaction disclosure forms reveal that multiple lawmakers jettisoned their shares in First Republic or acquired shares in JP Morgan, or both. Over the past 2 months, a phenomenon, which follows accusations that some lawmakers routinely buy stocks at opportune times and cut losses by selling shares. The lawmakers who sold shares of First Republic indeed avoided heavy losses. The firm's stock fell from $121.54 at the beginning of the year to $351 at the time of collapse. Rep. Lois Fankel, D. Florida, sold between 1,001 and 15,000 in First Republic shares on March 16th, and bought between 1,001 and 15,000 in JP Morgan on March 22nd. Ro Khanna, D. California, purchased the same amount of First Republic on March 9th, but likewise sold the same intermediate amount of the asset on March 15th, as well as purchased between 1,001 and 15,000 of JP Morgan on both March 3rd and March 14th. His disclosure form said the shares belonged to his wife and dependent child. John Curtis of Utah, meanwhile, sold between the same amount of First Republic, and the wife of Earl Blumenauer of Oregon, D. Oregon, sold between the same amount in First Republic stock on March 20th. Dan Goldman, D. New York, also sold the same amount of First Republic on March 15th. Nicole Maliatakis, R. New York, previously bought between 1,000 and 15,000 in New York Community Bank Corp., the company which would acquire Signature Bank on March 17th. This is the reason that Matt Gaetz and the Honorable and Venerable Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez are working together, and the reason that I'm actually praising Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez. When normally when you come to this channel, you see me criticizing her. So, that's what we have for that. More banking news from MarketWatch. PacWest plummets more than 50% after a report of potential sale. Other bank stocks join in decline. From Jeremy C. Owens. Yeah, if you're in banking or if you have bank stock right now, life is going to get a little bit rough. I'm going to tell you. if you have anything in stock right now, life is going to get a little bit rough, but especially if you've got stuff in banking. PacWest shares dove more than 50% in after-hours trading Wednesday after a report the company's executives are looking at a possible sale. I wonder what the futures look like right now. Let's have a look. Yeah, that ain't good. So normally we look at the futures based on, like, we look at when we did the morning show anyway, we did the futures and we looked at those in the morning right before the market opened. But we never looked at the chart, we just looked at the previous day. That's the futures report right now, starting at that's not good. I mean, still not a full point down, but after spending as much as it was up on futures trading, to just suddenly drop off like that. I will not give you official financial advice, but I will put the charts in front of you and say, make your own decision based on that. The regional bank shares have been diving this week after the collapse and sale of another regional bank in western U.S., First Republic, which was sold to J.P. Morgan. Bloomberg News reported Wednesday afternoon that PacWest leaders were considering strategic alternatives of their own, which could include a sale based on anonymous sources. Bloomberg, which is Ron Helton's favorite publication from his favorite politician, and I miss Ron Helton, by the way, and him reacting to me saying that, because we always got Mini Mike or Bloom Butt. I miss Ron Helton. Let's see. Bloomberg reported that the bank has not found much interest in an acquisition of the entire company and could look to break it apart or just to raise fresh capital. PacWest is based in California, like two of the other large regional banks to collapse this year. Well, here's the thing. If you've lost 50% of your stock, I'm guessing the next thing that's about to happen here is a bank run. And then by the weekend, the FDIC steps in. And by Sunday, your shares are worth pennies. And whoever winds up buying your bank buys it up for pennies on the dollar of what you're asking for right now. You know, just like what happened with First Republic. The Mogwai says, Gates and AOC are working together, mass hysteria. The Sun declined in Wednesday's extended session, wrapped in other bank stocks, including Western Alliance Bancorp and Zions Bancorp, NA. So, there are the facts. Make some financial decisions based on them, but I'm not going to tell you what those decisions are. Alright, a follow-up to something we read about yesterday. Supreme Court may finally end rule of bureaucrats with tragic Chevron case from John Fund. The Supreme Court made a tragic mistake almost 40 years ago. This is an op-ed, so the views expressed in here are the views of John Fund and not necessarily the views of the New York Post, Contemporary, Turns the Pages Productions, or your host, J. Edgar. The Supreme Court made a tragic mistake almost 40 years ago. Don't say that's almost 40 years ago. That's the same year I was born, you jerks. In the 1984 case of Chevron versus Natural Resources Defense Council, it ruled federal judges must defer to a regulatory agency's interpretations of federal law. So long as Congress has not addressed the issue in question, the agency's view can be construed as reasonable. Nothing the government does is reasonable. Since then, the power of the unelected administrative state has ballooned so that it now dictates much of our economy and daily lives. The court announced Monday it will revisit that precedent, raising hopes that this enormous federal power might be reined in. The The Constitution set up a system of separated powers in which Congress would pass laws, the President would administer them, and the courts would interpret them. Since the New Deal, Congress has shirked that accountability by increasingly giving unelected agencies the power to make decisions of vast economic and political significance. The Chevron decision turbocharged that process. Politico says liberal activists love Chevron because in hundreds of court decisions it's been invoked to hand agency experts the power to respond to problems Congress might not anticipate or fully understand. Well, you need better representatives then. That may be expedient, but it's dangerous trampling of our constitutional framework. Which it is. And I'm glad to see something like this. Maybe next we can correct another grave error and repeal the 17th. Let's do some Hunter stuff. "2011 emails reveal Hunter Biden helped business associates get access to VP Biden. Top aide, I'll do the MTG," which is probably meeting and not Marjorie Taylor Greene. From Cameron Cawthorn and Jessica Chasmar. President Brandon and his deputy chief of staff held a meeting with 3 of Hunter Biden's business associates, at least one of whom was a foreign national at the White House in the summer of 2011 when he was vice president, according to emails and White House visitor logs reviewed by Fox News Digital. At the time of the meeting, Hunter was trying to secure a deal with those associates in bonds worth billions of dollars. In June 2011, Hunter and his business partner, Rosemont Seneca Partners, co-founder Devin Archer, were in talks with Sean Conlon, the future CNBC The Deed co-host and founder of Conlon and Company, about a potentially lucrative business opportunity if Hunter would be able to secure a meeting between his father and 2 of Conlon's associates, Andrew Lasseri and Wang, who is identified as Shi Wang in the visitor logs. Earlier, energy executive David Gampiril had emailed Conlon a contract that was sent to him by Nagi Gawi, chairman-president of the since-dissolved Mercantile Investment Group in the West Indies, which Gampiril said had a real business model here and would help them make a substantial profit. Here's the current contract, Gampiril told Conlon on June 22, 2011. Proof of funds are in place and we may close this week. It has been a challenge in the management of procedures, but I think that we have it now. We will make substantial profits on this deal, but the market between $230 and $380 million. I'm trying to close this bond immediately as it opens up the floodgates on 29 other bonds that have less hair and much more value. I will also forward you a copy of bond and verification from Perito, who is a government official who inspects the authenticity of the bond. Good stuff, and I think we will have a real business model here. But Hunter's penis pics. Oh my god, it's Hunter penis pics. Like, this stuff is all there to go back and read. And our friends to the left keep coming and say, "Why are Republicans so obsessed with Hunter's penis pics?" I know, a lot of guys seem to like Marjorie Taylor Greene. I think she's a plant. GOP senators suggested Blinken lied about Burisma, was trying to connect with firms U.S. lobbyists from the New York Post's Stephen Nelson. Ron Johnson and Chuck Grassley believe Secretary of State Anthony Blinken may have lied to Congress about his knowledge of first son Hunter's job at Burisma, in addition to his alleged untruth about never emailing with Hunter. The senators wrote that emails from Hunter's abandoned laptop, as well as additional records assembled by legislative investigators, cast doubt on Blinken's professed ignorance of Hunter's role in Burisma's board, where he earned up to $1 million a year, and in fact show Blinken was trying to connect with Burisma's U.S. lobbyists. So, a member of the Biden admin lied to get his job. Who could have seen that coming? Lying to Congress is a crime punishable by up to 5 years in prison. They can lie to you, but if you lie to them, you go to prison for 5 years. And the intensifying focus on Blinken comes after he was exposed April 20th as the man who inspired 51 former spy agency leaders to issue a statement, casting doubt on the authenticity of documents from Hunter Biden's laptop implicating then presidential candidate Biden and his family's Chinese and Ukrainian business relationships. Yeah, and the problem is that nothing's going to happen to him still. Government's going to government, and they're going to scratch each other's backs. And lastly on this one, Republicans subpoena FBI file allegedly detailing how Biden sold U.S. policy for cash as part of a criminal scheme involving foreign national. Well, it's life if you meme Hillary, because as soon as you're done memeing Hillary, you die. As soon as you're done memeing Hillary, you get a sudden, deep bout of depression. From Joe McKinnon. The Biden Department of Justice and the FBI are reportedly in possession of a document that details a possible criminal scheme involving then Vice President Biden's collusion with a foreign national. Remember that when that was an impeachable offense, by the way? According to a reportedly reputable whistleblower, the document in question allegedly provides specific details about how Biden did the bidding of foreign national, delivering requested policy decisions in exchange for cash. House Oversight Committee Chairman Jim Comer and Republican Senator Chuck Grassley are now demanding that the FBI produce the record in question, having issued a subpoena to that effect, and the FBI is going to give them the finger. Because you can do that now. The duo penned a letter to Chris Wray and A.G. Garland on Wednesday, noting that on the basis of legally protected and highly credible unclassified whistleblower disclosures, it has come to our attention that the DOJ and FBI possess an unclassified FD 1023 form. An FD 1023 is a document used by the FBI to record interviews with whistleblowers and other sources. According to Comer and Grassley, the form contains valuable, verifiable information describing an alleged criminal scheme involving then Vice President Biden and a foreign national relating to the exchange of money for policy decisions. Big if true, but again, the problem here is that it's become fashionable and commonplace to give the finger to Congress when they subpoena you. From CBS, some election news here. Colin Allred jumps into 2024 Texas Senate race against Ted Cruz. Rep. Allred announced Wednesday that he'll be vying for the Senate seat held by Ted Cruz of Texas, becoming the first Democrat to jump into what could be one of the most expensive and closely watched races of 2024. That is because every time you throw something into Act Blue for your local candidate from here on out, 70 cents of that dollar will be going to Colin Allred. Your candidate will probably get a little slice of that, but 70 cents on the dollar in the slush fund known as Act Blue will be going to Colin Allred. In a campaign video posted to Twitter, Allred said Cruz would do anything to get on Fox News and criticized him for leaving the state during his historic ice storm in 2021. Yeah, that was a bad idea. As well as his comments about the January 6th Selfie Fest. Allred showed footage from January 6th and said he texted his wife, "Whatever happens, I love you." Then I took off my jacket and got ready to take on anyone who came through the door. No, you didn't. That is a load of bullshit. And Ted Cruz, he cheered on the mob and then hid in a supply closet while they stormed the Capitol. But that's Ted for you, all hat and no cattle. Cruz's spokesman Nick Maddox responded Wednesday to Allred's announcement, saying that his voting record is completely out of touch with Texas and that the Lone Star State has a tireless champion in Ted Cruz. Tireless is not the word that I would use there, or champion. Allred, a former NFL player and civil rights attorney who served under HUD's Secretary Julian Castro during the Obama admin, touted some of the bipartisan bills he supported in Congress. He was first elected to the House in 2018, unseating Republican Rep. Pete Sessions. The seat turned even more Democratic during the 2021 redistricting process. So, one thing that I want to talk about on this is strategy and who you're putting up against Ted Cruz. Now, for Allred, If I was a Democrat strategist, I would be telling Allred, go back to the House and take a seat. Shut up, sit down, take your seat, and vote for the things that we tell you to vote for. That's what I would be doing if I was a Republican strategist. Or a Democrat strategist, rather. Because we've seen this play out before. You know who the last person whose political career was ended by trying to take on Ted Cruz? Beto O'Rourke. You can pour all the money in the world into a statewide race in Texas, and you can pour all the honk and honk and honk into it, and the best you can ever hope for is a slim majority. Now, if this is some upstart, somebody who is not currently sitting in office, maybe somebody who was a Democrat mayor somewhere, somebody who was in the state house, possibly, in a very safe blue district, that you know you're going to come back and get another very, very safe blue person up into there, in an office that doesn't have national concerns or isn't going to be nationally televised, that would be the person I would put up if I was a Democrat strategist. But the person that you know in the House, the former Obama admin person who speaks to progressives and everything else, if I was in that position, I would be telling that guy to sit down and shut up. He was not up for election after... This is his first time up for re-election after he went to the nice warm Caribbean. Mogwai. Senators get re-elected every 6 years. So he wasn't up last year. And by the way, this is going to be the first time where that gaffe is going to weigh on him. Which, and again, and I've talked about this before, there is absolutely nothing Ted Cruz could have done in his position and his capacity for the people of Texas. For the most part, him going in to hand out blankets, to serve warm meals, or even try to get onto the lines to try to help get some of these houses warmed up, he would have been mostly in the way to do that. So, for him to stick around to try to help Texas, that was a bit of a disingenuous accusation from people like Allred. The issue that came up was the fact that he, with means, tried to cut the state, ditch the state, and take the people that he cared about into the Caribbean to do so, rather than staying and suffering with his constituents. That just looks bad. That just looks terrible. In every aspect of the imagination. And again, him being on the ground, there was not a lot that he could have done. But it's still the optics of it, and optics is huge in politics. So, I'm not sitting here denigrating Ted Cruz for wanting to get out of there, or not doing enough to help out around the area. There's really nothing he could have done. But the fact that he got caught doing what essentially equated to being a coward, that's going to play heavily on this election. I don't know. I don't think he can lose. But I think he's going to be running a lot slimmer than he did against Beto. That's the thing. That's the thing with Ted. Speaking of the Senate, from the Hill Senate rankings, here are the 5 seats most likely to flip. From Al Weaver. Midterms were only 6 months ago, but the 2024 campaign season is already firing on all cylinders. Yeah, we're pretty much in a perpetual campaign season at this point. As races ramp up for the Senate seats, that will determine the control of the upper chamber. Republicans are on offense as they search for the top candidates to take down a cadre of incumbent Democrats who have survived cycle upon cycle. At stake is the Democrats' one-seat majority as they play defense in a ruby red states that Republicans are licking their chops to win. Now, without Honk, my prediction for the Senate is 53-47 Republican. But there may be some Honk in there, because the safe Republicans are very few and far between. And the vulnerable Democrats this time are in a lot more purple positions than they were last time through. Like I said, Ted Cruz is not going to get unseated, especially not by all red. Let's look at West Virginia. The consolation prize neocon unipartyist Jim Justice, who is basically a mansion with a different letter next to his name. We talked about that earlier. That one is likely to flip. That's very likely to flip. Montana. Unlike in West Virginia, the first half of the equation is complete for Democrats, as Tester announced earlier this year that he will seek a fourth term, giving the party a real chance in one of the two reddest states on the map. Now it's a matter of getting him across the finish line as Republicans try to find a candidate able to deny him 6 more years in Washington. Now, Montana is going to be interesting. I think it flips, but I'm not as sure as West Virginia. You've got a lot of college in the only real population centers in Montana. There are only like 1 million people in Montana, and that place is huge. There's like 1 person for every square mile in Montana. But a lot of them in the population centers are compacted around the universities and really nowhere else. I'd like to go see Montana at some point. I really would. The problem with Montana, and the wild card is going to be who migrated to Montana, because that was one of the big hotspots for migration from deep, deep blue states. But the big question there is going to be if they left their voting behind in their blue states. And I don't know that that's the case. I think a bunch of them did, but I don't know that all of them did. So Montana is going to be a bit of a wild card. I think it flips. I'm about 70-30 that it flips. But West Virginia, I'm 90-10. Ohio. Ohio flips. That's 95%. Sherrod Brown running against Matt Dolan and Bernie Moreno. Ohio Secretary of State Frank LaRose and Warren Davidson are eyeing potential bid. Now, Ohio was a deep, deep purple state, a swing state for a long time. But in the wake of the progressives betraying the Union side of their vote, Ohio has become redder and redder every single cycle. I was a little surprised that Sherrod Brown made it last time 6 years ago. I'm 95% that Ohio flips this time. Arizona flips. The problem with Arizona is that Sinema is going to get primaried because they need to have that seat to be a D, but she's going to get primaried to the left. And in order to get to the left of Kyrsten Sinema, you have to go way out there into deep, deep LA, California territory in your political beliefs. I would almost say Arizona is a completely guaranteed flip. 99-1. Arizona flips. I don't even have to know who the candidates are. All that Arizona GOP has to do is run somebody moderately populist And no, I will say this. Don't put Kerry Lake in that position. There's talking on the Hill about putting Kerry Lake in there. Do not put Kerry Lake in that position. The attack ads are too easy for her. Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania stays blue. Of the 5 Democrats on this list, no one is in a better position to secure re-election than Bob Casey of Pennsylvania, as Republicans brace for a bruising primary battle between the establishment and hardcore right-wing factions of the party. Ask almost any Republican in the Keystone State, and they'll say the GOP's chances to defeat Casey are zilch if David McCormick, the former CEO of Bridgewater Associates who lost the state's Senate primary to Mehmet Oz last year, isn't the nominee. Initial prediction, 80%, Casey wins re-election in Pennsylvania. I can almost guarantee Pennsylvania stays with Bob Casey. So, those are the races to watch according to the Hill this time through. And I'm fairly positive that 4 of the 5 that they brought up to talk about, I don't think Pennsylvania's going to flip. I really don't. I think they can effectively honk that state to where we don't have to worry about that one, or they don't have to worry about that one. A little bit of real estate news for you. We're going to start winding down here in just a few minutes. We will close the show with something that I'm thankful for, but we're going to finish up a few more of these. I think we'll get done with everything that we were supposed to. Actually, before we do this one, I do want to talk about this one here from Rogan. And I don't want to, because I've had this on the stack for a couple days, and I don't want to leave today without going over this one, especially given what we just saw with the flips, the potential flips. Joe Rogan says Democrats' only chance to win 2024 is if Biden dies very soon. This is not the official position of Turns of Pages Productions or Contemporary, especially on Contemporary. I won't speak for anybody else who creates for TSP, but the official stance for J. Edgar and Contemporary is that we hope that Joe Biden leads a very long, happy life. Well, he's already led a very long life, but stays in office for the rest of his term, and if he makes it in 2024, stays in office through the rest of his term again. And when he does happen to pass along, he does so of very natural causes, and nothing bad happens to him. Don't ban me, Wojcicki. This is from Carlos Garcia. Usually with Rogan, they have video. I don't even know who his guest was at this time. Okay, and we do have a 45-second video clip of this, but let's listen to this first, or read this first. Joe Rogan opined on his incredibly popular podcast that the only chance Democrats have to win the Oval Office in 24 is if Biden dies very soon and someone else steps up. Rogan made the comments on a show while interviewing Dave Smith. Oh, Dave Smith was on. I'll probably listen to that one. I like Dave Smith. I always look over at the right times and see something funny from Mogwai. I really do think Harris puts a mirror under Biden's nose when he sleeps, then cusses when it fogs up. Damn it, he's still alive. The fact that he's running again, it's so wild when you watch him talk. The fact is there's no leadership that can find a solution to this, because there's really no solution. Like, what are they going to do other than Biden dying, like, very soon, and then someone stepping up in a big way that makes sense? You guys tried DMT? Let's watch.
The fact that there's no leadership that can find a solution to this, because there really is no solution other than Biden dying like very soon and then someone stepping up in a big way.
Note to self: check out Rogan. I might do that this weekend. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to go on a hike this weekend because it's supposed to be warm. I think I'm actually going to go to my parents' house again and start the garden because it's actually warm enough to do starter pots. I don't know if my mom is in the chat listening to this today, but no plans in the chat, obviously. Because we got to get vegetables up here. Got to have vegetables, and this is not like my old place in Redacted, where I had at least a space to either set up UV lights and get stuff growing, or a great big eastern window that got sunlight for half of the day. But they do have a big southern exposure, so. And since they'll be doing most of the work, they will probably get most of the veggies too. I have no problem with that. But I at least want to get everything started. Alright. Now for some real estate news. And we are running up on the clock too, by the way, so. We're actually not going to get done with everything that started for today because we did the Rogan article. From CNBC, billionaire Stephen Deckhoff buys Epstein's private islands from Dan Mangan and Don Giel. An investment firm led by billionaire Stephen Deckhoff has bought 2 private islands in the U.S. Virgin Islands previously owned by notorious sex criminal Jeffrey Epstein. Deckhoff confirmed to CNBC on Wednesday. Forbes first reported that Deckhoff, the founder of the private equity firm Black Diamond Capital Management, purchased the 2 islands for $60 million, less than half their initial asking price. One of the islands was used by Epstein to sexually abuse young women for years, according to court filings. Mr. Deckhoff plans to develop state-of-the-art, 5-star, world-class luxury 25-room resort that will help bolster tourism, create jobs, and spur economic development in the region, while respecting and preserving the important environment of the islands, according to a press release about the sale. SC Investments, which is led by Deckhoff, announced the purchase. Look, I'm going to come right off and say, I don't think that I could stay on that island knowing what I know about what it is. That's one thing I don't think that I could do. I've done a lot of screwed up stuff in my life. Now, obviously, I think that Deckhoff he's not going to lead with the fact of, hey, stay on Epstein's island. But the fact that CNBC is reporting on it means the mainstream knows about it, and they know that if you're going to be going and staying in a vacation spot in that region of the world, in the U.S. Virgin Islands, you're probably going to be on Epstein Island. I couldn't do it. I don't care how wonderful the resort is. I don't care how beautiful the white sand beaches are. I don't care how much money he spends in washing out the semen stains and the tears. I couldn't do it. It's a personal thing for me. I couldn't do it. I've got this feeling that this is going to be something that just fails. It's a shame because it's a beautiful island. I've seen pictures of it. It's got a beautiful view, a lot of beaches, a lot of beachfront property, a lot of amenities, but just couldn't do it. Could not do it. You couldn't pay me to go stay at that resort. The stigma behind it and everything else that goes with it. I couldn't do it. And the last one, just because it's funny, and I've already got things I like and things that I hate pretty much filled for tomorrow, and we're probably going to find some more stuff. But the last one we'll do today comes to us from the Daily Wire. No special treatment. Elon Musk says he will give the NPR's Twitter handle to another company unless they return to the platform. From Ben Ziesloft. NPR said on Wednesday Elon Musk threatened to take away the Twitter handle belonging to the news outlet unless the firm continues to post on the platform. Okay, before you do that, can you go and kick the girl with the J. Edgar 101 handle off of Twitter so I can have it? Because she hasn't posted since like 2010. NPR posted in March. The outlet, which ceased using Twitter last month after Musk temporarily affixed a label to the account, noting that NPR receives funds from government entities, revealed that Musk sent a series of emails to business reporter Bobby Allen on Tuesday. So is NPR going to start posting on Twitter again, or should we reassign NPR to another company? Allen wrote that the idea shocked even longtime observers of Musk's spur-of-the-moment and erratic leadership style, and asserted that an effort to reassign companies' handles on the site poses a serious risk of impersonation and could even imperil a company's reputation. The reporter noted to Musk that the current Twitter terms of service define inactive accounts as those who do not log into the platform at least once every 30 days. Our policy is to recycle handles that are definitively dormant. Musk replied in another email, same policy applies to all accounts, no special treatment for NPR. ASNPR. NPR expressed outrage over the decision from Twitter to add a state-affiliated media tag to the company's profile, a label that placed NPR and the company, a foreign state-run media outlets such as TASS in Russia and Xinhua News in China. Although NPR was created with an act of Congress, Twitter previously listed NPR as an exception in the US because of the editorial independence maintained by the company. Look at that! Elon really is making Twitter a better place. I'm gonna look just to see. Nope, that account is still active. And I'm sorry, last post was in 2013, not 2010. So, if I can get that handle, I will be more sympathetic to Elon's claims about NPR. And you know what? We're going to go for a little bit more. Because remember, we had the Spectrum goof at the beginning. So let's go for 20 more minutes. All right, Montana judge denies State Rep Zoe Zephyr's request to return to the House floor. From Zoe Richards. A Montana judge on Tuesday denied a transgender state rep Zoe Zephyr's request for a court order allowing her to return to the House floor after she was barred by Republican colleagues over remarks on gender-affirming care legislation. State District Judge Mike Menahan cited the separation of powers in ruling against Zephyr, a Democrat, and suggested that she was seeking the outside scope of the court's authority. Zephyr blasted Menahan's decision, calling it dangerous and undemocratic. What this ruling implies is that the legislature isn't beholden to the Constitution, and there's no right to free speech in the face of a supermajority, she said in a statement. I will stand alongside my constituents, my community, and the world as we seek to ensure that our democratic institutions survive these attacks. Menahan, a former Democratic legislator, ruled the day after Zephyr sued in state court, challenging her censure for telling fellow lawmakers that a bill to ban gender-affirming care would have blood on their hands. House Speaker Matt Regier has refused to let Zephyr speak on the floor without an apology. Well, see, there's that, and there's also the fact that she led protesters into the Montana State House, onto the floor, in a very, very big breach of Montana decorum. Regier welcomed the judge's ruling. The Montana courts have recognized that the judicial branch has no power to revise or overrule the power expressly held by the Montana State Legislature to conduct its business. Regier said in a statement, "The House is continuing its work for the people of Montana." So, she gone. Let's do our Bernie Sanders news, because we've got 17 more minutes. This one coming to us from all the way back from Sunday. I know, because that was my birthday. That's listed on the date line. Bernie Sanders. Biden is going to win in a landslide. From John Rigolizzo. Bernie Sanders predicted that President Biden would win re-election in a landslide in 2024. Appearing on State of Disunion on Sunday, Sanders said that he takes a multitude of factors into account when choosing who to vote for. No, he doesn't. He does whatever the DNC tells him to do. Sanders attacked Republicans as enemies of democracy and said Biden would win if Democrats prioritized supporting working people more. Well, I think that if you look at the candidate, you consider a lot. I think age is one thing. I think experience is another thing. I think your record and that you have established is another thing. But to my mind, when you put it all together, what you have to look at is, what does the candidate stand for? Which side are they on? Are they on the side of the billionaire class? Which is absolutely hilarious because Joe Biden absolutely is. Or on the side of the working people? Let's listen.
President Biden announced his campaign officially for re-election this week. He would be 86 years old by the end of his second term. You're 1 year older than President Biden. Is his age something that voters should consider in 2024?
Well, I think when you look at a candidate, you consider a lot. I think age is one thing. I think experience is another thing. I think your record that you have established is another thing. But to my mind, Donna, when you put it all together, what you have to look at is, what does the candidate stand for? Which side are they on? Are they on the side of the billionaire class? Or are they on the side of working people? Look, it is no great secret I ran against Biden. No great secret that he and I have strong differences of opinion. But when we live in a nation where you have a major political party, the Republican Party, where many, not all, but many of their leadership doesn't even believe in democracy. They maintain the myth that Trump won the last election. They're trying to keep people from voting. They're trying to deny women the right to control their own bodies. So that's a whole issue out there. If you believe in democracy, you want to see more people vote, not fewer people vote, I think the choice is pretty clear, and that choice is Biden. And second of all, what I do believe is the Democrats and the president have got to be stronger on working class issues. They've got to make it clear that we believe in a government that represents all, not just the few. Take on the greed of the insurance companies, the drug companies, Wall Street, all the big...
We're going to take on the greed of the insurance companies by making it a crime for you to not have insurance.
Money interest, and start delivering for working class people. You do that, I think Biden's going to win in a landslide.
Yeah, but that's not what Democrats are focused on. It never has been. It's about power and throwing a few breadcrumbs out to the leftoids to make sure that they come out to vote, and also instilling a large amount of fear into them to make sure that they come out to vote, rather than staying home. Because these people are already not going to vote for Republicans. It is literally all about power. Another one from The Wire. Sanders on why Democrats won't primary Biden. It has to do with the fear of growth of the right-wing extremism. Okay, this is just a 40-second clip, so we'll do this one too. Bernie Sanders said in an interview late this week that the reason Democrats are not going to primary 80-year-old President Joe Biden is because of right-wing extremism. The socialist senator made the remarks during an interview with Chris Wallace on CNN's Who's Talking to Chris Wallace? I have a better question. Why does anybody care who's talking to Chris Wallace? Well, I'm going to sit here and talk like this here and only move one half of my mouth while I ask people questions about why Republicans are so evil. Why is it not a single leading Democrat is willing to contest that nomination in the primaries? Wallace said. Why do you think that is? Let's watch.
President Biden announced this week that he's running for re-election, and you have already endorsed him. Why is it that not a single leading Democrat is willing to contest that nomination in the primaries?
I suspect it has to do with a real fear of the growth of right-wing extremism in this country. The Republican Party over the last number of years, accelerated by Trumpism, has become not a conservative party, but a right-wing extremist party. And this is a party that, not all by any means, but you have many of the leaders who actually don't believe in democracy anymore. I think there's a great fear in this country about attacks on democracy. We want to maintain democracy.
So you're saying it's more fear of Donald Trump and MAGA than it is enthusiasm for Joe Biden?
Well, I think that's half of it.
No, that's entirely all of it. And it's in the rhetoric, it's in the videos, it's in the speeches, and yes, it is in what Bernie Sanders said. Democrats are currently recycling President Trump's 2016 campaign. And I'm not even joking. They don't hate you. They don't hate me. They hate me. They hate you, and I'm standing in their way. I'm the only thing that's standing between you and a radical right-wing agenda. If you vote for me, I will stop the left, the radical left. So vote for me, your favorite president, who will stop the woke agenda from coming. This is Trump's 2016 campaign. It's his 2020 campaign. It's DeSantis' 2024 campaign. And his 2022 gubernatorial campaign. And now it's, if you switch the left and the right, it's the Democrats' 2024 campaign as well. I'm going to tell you right now, man. I'm standing here in front of a blood red background. Because the evil of MAGA, and I'm the only thing standing in your way from the evil of MAGA, man. And if something happens to me, then they're just I'm the only thing standing in your way from them and trampling over all of America. Biden might as well just come back out and say, put y'all back in chains. Again. And because Bernie Sanders is Bernie Sanders, Bernie Sanders calls for confiscating all money people make over $999 million per year. Which, by the way, is going to be very, very few. Unless, of course, you get the capital gains on top of that. If they sell a yacht or something from Daily Wire News. Mogwai is going to chant, lock her up. '80s Kid says, yes, when you have nothing else to use, just use right-wing extremism, sexism, racism, and a lot of ists and isms. That always works. Silent Caster says, a lot of them don't believe in democracy anymore, correct? I resent the fact that a pink-haired freak has the same voting power as I do. Bernie Sanders said in an interview this week he believes all the money people make, over $999 million, should be confiscated by the government. There's another Chris Wallace clip, by the way. Let's watch.
Sir, you're saying that billionaires should not exist. So are you basically saying that once you get to $999 million, that the government should confiscate all the rest?
I'm saying that we should go back to a very progressive tax policy like what we had under Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Which would mean that over $1 billion, basically it all goes to the government.
You may disagree with me, but
I'm just asking.
Fine. Yeah, I think people can make it on $999 million.
So, a few things, and there's some disingenuity coming from the Daily Wire. I know, you're shocked. I know I was shocked when I said that. There's definitely some genuineness coming. I don't know what the conjugated form of that word is, by the way. Is it disingenuity? I think it is. But there's definitely some of that coming here because the Daily Wire is trying to come back and say he wants to confiscate every penny over $999 million that people make in a year. That's not what he wants. Now, a lot of his brain-dead followers are going to think that that's what he wants because they believe that if you're a billionaire, that's what you make per year. Whereas the billionaires actually usually typically have a very, very low salary otherwise. They get a little bit more in capital gains depending on what it is that they buy and sell. But most of what they have is wrapped up in intangibly or a tangible asset. It's in their stocks. It's in the bonds that they own to the government, which are gaining money as they go. It's in CDs and savings accounts. It's in, what else is it in? It's in hard assets, buildings, and property, which typically, until the housing market crashes anyway, go up in value. Yachts, which actually also typically go up in value. Sometimes an exotic car, not one like your '89 Civic that loses value every year, but something exotic like a Bugatti or something that goes up in value every year. That's what their assets are tied up into. And yes, when they sell something for a gain, they pay the capital gains tax on that. What Bernie actually means is that for every bit of asset that they have, over $999 million, they should be forced to sell off and pay a capital gains tax on. Which, I mean, for some of these business leaders, the building that they do production in is worth more than that. The Nestle factory is worth more than $999 million. The GM operations plant in Detroit is worth more than $999 million by itself. And then they've got plants all over the rest of the country and in Canada and Mexico on top of that. SpaceX headquarters is worth more than $999 million. Not to mention the business associated with all that and the stock that's included in that. You ever think what would happen too if they decided to do that and put a cap on personal wealth? And what it would do to the market of things if people were forced to sell off after they got up to that certain cap? Number one, who's going to buy it? Because the only person who can buy a billionaire's yacht is another billionaire. But all of this again goes on to the fact that most of these people don't know how any economics work. And by the way, I will like to have it pointed out, I don't know what he does now that he's a philanthropist and another entrepreneur. But when Bezos was the CEO of Amazon, he wrote himself a salary of $70,000 a year. Bezos' salary was similar to mine when he was the CEO of Amazon. He changed things in hands and capital gains here and there throughout the years, bought and sold buildings, wrapped up his gains back into other buildings and everything, but his salary, what he lived on, was $70,000 a year. Again, don't know what he does now that he's not the CEO anymore, but... Silent Caster says an 89 Civic's probably gaining value every year, to be fair. Yep. We'll do one more. Then we'll call it a day. David Bellman tweets out, 27 states send a letter to Biden to drop the mortgage charge penalizing buyers with good credit to subsidize buyers with poor credit. This shows the need for more state right and less federal government interference. Amen. We're going to read from a non-green check verified source, but one that is owned by the New York Post. This is Today News Africa. "27 states slam Biden's disastrous mortgage policy, demand immediate reversal." Again, reminder, what we are seeing here is not green check verified. I wanted to discuss it because of the implications of the mortgage policy. But as a launching point, not necessarily, again, just keep in mind that this is not something that, this is closer to a conservative blog than what I usually use as a source on this channel. Top finance officials from 27 states, including state treasurers, auditors, and commissioners of revenue, have called on President Biden to abandon his contentious policy that requires individuals with good credit scores to subsidize mortgage loans for higher risk borrowers. They argue that the policy set to take effect today would be disastrous. Yeah, just a little bit. The officials represent Alabama, Alaska, Arizona, Arkansas, Florida, Idaho, Indiana, Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Missouri, Nebraska, Nevada, North Carolina, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, Pennsylvania, South Carolina, South Dakota, Texas, Utah, West Virginia, Wisconsin, and Wyoming. The Federal Housing Agency announced the plan a few weeks ago with the goal of helping lower-income borrowers afford their monthly mortgage payments. The policy would require people with good credit scores to pay more for the mortgages each month, with the extra payment supporting the loans of higher-risk borrowers. That's not what it was either, by the way. That's not even close to what that was. Both Republicans and Democrats have criticized the controversial policy, including Obama's former federal housing administrator, on Monday. Financial officers from 27 states argued that the policy is a mistake even before its implementation. So, I'm going to talk just a bit about this because, number one, Today News Africa got it wrong. That's not what's happening here. What is happening is that there's an extra fee tapped onto the mortgages of high-income earners and people with fantastic credit, typically $40 a month. That doesn't necessarily go into lowering or lessening the costs for people with lower credit. But what they're doing is that the banks who carry these loans are forced to keep that fee in a trust over time, and it builds, especially as they're trying to relax the creditworthiness requirements for people. As they're trying to relax some of this stuff here, they want this money in a trust and growing and gaining interest so that the banks can turn around and use it and not crash when these people inevitably start to default on their loans. It is a protection for the big billionaire banking class, which is Biden's donor class. So no, in a sense, I guess the good credit home buyers are paying for the low-income buyers' mortgages, but I mean, the low-income buyers are still going to lose their houses, and they're going to get back and sold off for what they were owed on in the midst of the market, and wealthy investors are going to come back and snap them back up. This is nothing but a policy that supports the wealthy. It always has been, and it's wrong. Biden's trying to make it look like he's trying to support the little guy, but in fact, he is attempting to A, support his wealthy buddies, and B, put a temporary program into place that makes it look like he gives a damn about the little guy. And with that, we are actually going to head out here now. The last thing I do every Wednesday is I sit and talk about something that I'm thankful for, something that restores my faith in humanity. And there are a couple things that go along with this right now. And it's not just, I talk a lot in the segment about my personal life and some of the struggles that I've been able to overcome growing up. And I could sit and talk about a couple of weeks ago when I went to the Ford dealer and actually looked at buying a brand new truck for the first time in my life and could afford it. I could actually sit down and make the payments no matter what they hit me for interest, because I got one delinquent account on my credit right now. It just basically came up from moving expenses, taking a toll on, it was my student loans. I'll come right out and say it. But even if they dinged me on Ford credit and gave me like a 3.5, because they are generous on new vehicles for interest rates, I could still go back and make the payments on that truck, that brand new truck right now. But it's going to stand in the way of me buying a house, so I'm not going to do it right now. And I can also thank the Lord for another trip around the sun. My birthday was Sunday. It was a low-key birthday. I got to spend most of the beginning part of the day with family. Something I haven't been able to do in a number of years. And then finish out the day with a nice big plate of sushi in the prequel trilogy. But what I do want to talk about when I look into some of the news, especially some of the news of the day today, is I want to talk about some of the shifting of the look in our government. Now, there are two big things that are happening in the government. We talked about both of them today. One is probably going to go in my favor, and the other one probably isn't. The Chevron thing, where people are starting to look at this and finding a way to stop the government creep, the administrative creep. I think that there's still too much power in the federal government, and there's going to be for a long time. But if we have to have that massive amount of power in our federal government, I'd like it to be coming from people that I voted for and elected to that Congress, or attempted to vote against, if it be the case, like with Tammy Baldwin, who is, as much as I dislike her, still beholden to the people of Wisconsin. People like Brian Stile, who I also don't care for because he's a do-nothing congressman. But he was my congressman for, ever since Paul Ryan stepped down. The Chevron Act is a step in the right direction. It's not perfect. Again, it doesn't strip the government of all the power that it needs to strip the government of. But it puts a lot more of the lawmaking side of things back into the hands of the legislature and takes a lot of it away from unelected, faceless bureaucrats. So I'm happy for that. And I'm also happy that there is some attention being paid to who is making money off of their seats, the stock bill. Who is selling their power for influence, and who is using their insider knowledge to make themselves wealthy. I'm so happy for the fact that that's finally happening. That is long overdue. Unfortunately, that one is probably not going to go my way. That is probably going to get tanked in both the House, the Senate, and it'll probably get vetoed by the Biden admin too, if it does manage to get to his desk. So that one's probably not going anywhere. But the big one, the Chevron Act, that actually restores some of my faith in humanity, because we the people, I think, are starting to have enough. They really are. And it's time. Especially with the Stock Trading Act. I mean, these are people who are, by in and all rights, mortal enemies. The House Freedom Caucus and the Progressive Caucus working together to come back in on a common goal of ending some corruption of the unipartyists here, who are screwing both of those caucuses, by the way. The enemy of my enemy is my friend, but we have something. Some move together to the middle, to something that's going to affect and benefit both sides and the American people on top of it. Like I said, there will be if this law does manage to go through by some miracle of public pressure, Stocks are going to drop to like 25,000 and the Dow. I use the Dow as a benchmark because that's the one I look at every day. From 33,000 to 20 to 25,000 that first day that it's implemented, because Congress owns a lot of stock. But there are a lot of people where some of these stocks are actually going to be within their reach. And those prices are going to come back up. I would say probably within a week we'd be back in the 30,000 range at least again, depending on where we start from on how bad Biden screws the economy. And I'm glad that some of we the people are starting to have enough. I really am. And that's all I have to say about that. That is what I'm thankful for. Thank you, Into, by the way. I just saw Into had joined us in here. Mogwai says, signs of the Armageddon, cue the world-ending asteroid. Dogs and cats living together. Let's head out of here. I'm gonna have a burger. I got these little cheeseburgers at the local festival. It's a burger, but it's got chunks of cheese inside of it. And a lot of them, too. I don't know how the hell I'm gonna cook that. Because I don't really like the caramelized cheese thing. But I'm going to see if I can find a way to do that and keep the caramelized cheese off the end of it. I don't like burnt cheese. I know I'm weird like that, especially with people who made up the concept of just the cheese snacks, which is supposed to be the burnt crispy edges of your grilled cheese without any carbs in them. For me, that would be a great thing, but I took one bite of one of those things and I'm like, nope, we ain't doing that shit. That's disgusting. I think it probably would have been maybe better if they hadn't just drenched it completely in salt either. It was like eating a block of salt, not cheese. I felt like a deer being baited. Alright, anyway, let's head out of here for the day. Thanks everybody for coming in and joining us here today. Good crowd today. Some lurkers over on the Rumble side. We'll get you guys over on the Rumble side more comfortable coming in and talking, but we'll be back here tomorrow with a big slew of things I like and things that I hate. I've got like 12 tabs and I don't know which ones are which, so we'll be talking about all of those tomorrow, plus the news of what happens in the next 22 hours on the day. We got through a lot, even with Spectrum being crap, but we'll see what happens with that. We've at least identified the problem over here, so we will see if that can get fixed sometime in the near future. Definitely looking forward to seeing you guys here tomorrow for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. Stick around if you are over on the Twitch side, because we're going to go raiding somebody, and since we actually have people chatting on the Twitch side, we'll see who we're going to raid. Oh, we gotta take my volume back off here so you don't hear myself talking. Should we do Fallout 4? No, let's go see Finek. No, that's a huge channel. I don't want to do that channel. We'll do Gab USA CCA for our raid today, so stick around if you are over there for the raid. We will see you here tomorrow for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. Looking forward to seeing you guys here then, and until tomorrow, I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.